I'm just going to read this. It's from everydayconcern.net. This is about a targeted individual by the name of Melissa Black. So, I'm just going to read you what she has written with Ramola. This is how they're doing the implants. I have complained about this implant that I have. It was done in my house, and according to her accounts, and she's reported what has happened to her, they are using what's called Tele-surgery. Now, apparently she knows who is doing this to her. His last name is Wolf, and his first name is, I had his first name, I can't think. But she knows who her perpetrator is. And apparently he must be what I would consider a high-ranking Mason. Or he's probably reptilian. Anyways, I'm just going to read this. I'll get you the title of the article later. She was treated to another appearance of Wolf, her perpetrator, telling her she was going to remove a chip from her right ear in Tele-surgery. Literally, she says, a wormhole. This is how they come into our dimension. She says a wormhole opened in her room and an ethereal vision of Wolf seemingly reaching from another dimension onto this one reached down to operate on her ear. Something he has surely not medically licensed to do. So, if you're a TI and you notice that they're doing things to you, like you can feel it, they're probably trying to do what's called Tele-surgery. So that's how they're putting these implants in the privacy of people's homes. Okay? The most egregious holographic display, she recalls, was tied not to surgery but rape. So this is how they're raping women. In 2007, Wolf was in another holographic display at the foot of my bed watching while I was being raped by 5 men. This time, Wolf was standing next to a white man looking at what was being done to me. The synthetic telepathy message that was sent to me was, every man that you have ever said no to will have his way with you. Were these experiences real or virtual? Melissa has woken, she says, to find her private parts swollen shut. Is this sexual enslavement and sex trafficking then in addition to everything else? In a recent email sent on May 22nd, 2017, Melissa writes, speaking of a remote electronic access to women. In 2008, his first name's Barrett. Her perpetrator is Barrett. Barrett Wills said he had sex with most of his victims and all he had to do was put himself inside them. He doesn't want them to have an orgasm. This is very true. They will get you climaxed and then they'll dump you. It's almost like they just don't know how to reach that highness. It's really sick shit. He doesn't want them to have an orgasm and seems to pride himself at leaving a woman hanging. He picks women up at churches and even has been sent at a brothel in Nashville. He spoke of just putting himself inside my youngest child, telling her that he would save my life for letting him do that to her. Isn't that sick? Okay, now I want to back up here. There was something really interesting how this guy he said that he had a dossier on her. Just like, what they done to Trump. Oh, this is very interesting. This guy here, she got an article on, this one is very interesting. He's a geographic guy, geologist. And he wrote an article titled Geoslavery, this Peter Fisher. He discovered how they are using global positioning systems by radio transmitter. So that's interesting to read. And it's just interesting. So I'm kind of like, I'm going to go back and read a little bit about her situation. She was not to live in her own home long. A series of circumstances converged to ensure that she lost her house in 2004, primary among them her inability to land lasting employment, thanks to being blacklisted everywhere, which is what they do. She has already begun to visit the unemployment office in Columbia before she lost her house. On a few occasions, remarkable events occurred. Judy Vick, a county commissioner who also worked at the Tennessee Department of Employment Security, where Melissa went to find work, said, "We have one contract with a retired Air Force man." After Melissa mentioned she was being stalked by an Air Force man on her visit in 2004, she went with a man named Kevin Gardner, who escorted her in, then went over and shook someone's hand, a Larry X. The moment appeared to have a particular import. Oddly, she felt that if she'd been set up to go there later that night, through synthetic telepathy, she heard the voice of the man, Larry X, saying she's going to lose her house. Another time, a woman said that the person she came to had not tried RHIC as of yet. Melissa did not get any further details because she says she was in a trance all those years, hypnotized into passivity. Wolf dropped by often. This is a sick guy. He's a perpetrator. To sit and talk to her for hours, his voice on monotone. In retrospect, she believes she was being conditioned to accept the sound of his voice, droning on 24/7 in the back of her head, a circumstance that began to occur in 2007, when she retired from the Air Force, when she was suddenly hit with audible V2K regularly every night. She told her she was going to become a girl again. He showed up in synthetic dreams streamed through her brain with a plastic bag on his head. By email, he told her he was only her pen pal. Later, he told her by V2K that meant he was the only one he could read and write her chip. He meant her brain chip, the programmable one on non-consensual implanted in her brainstem. After her house was foreclosed on, she moved to her daughter's house, also in Columbia, not far from where she was, where through all of 2005 she used tin foils to shield the windows in her head. The beams and pulses still came through with the foil on her head, and the window beamed riddled with tiny holes. The furniture started vibrating. Hit with continuous radiation, often dizzy and fatigued, her knees assaulted, internal organs burning up, vague pains assaulting her every day, heart congested, sleep deprived, Melissa embarked on a long round of visiting doctors and specialists. Neurologists, hematologists, urologists, psychologists, neuropsychologists, pulmonologists, orthopedic seizures, gynecology, endocrinologists, toxicologists, ENT specialists. She also visited sleep specialists and enrolled in sleep studies twice in 2011 and 2013. Now this is interesting. Her sleep studies show something really interesting that happens to TIs all the time. And I'll go over that. Both in Tennessee and in 2013 in Ohio, where she began her doctoral studies in Christian education. Okay. Driving from Dayton, Ohio to Columbia, Tennessee in 2013-15, every month to visit her family, she felt always as if incinerated from above, feel an intense beam of radiation from a satellite or cell tower. Locked alternately on her right jaw and pubic area, causing intense pain. The car seemed to vibrate. Her body vibrated too. Slowly she began to gather evidence for the panoply of converted assaults being carried out on her person. X-rays, MRIs, radiology scans revealed implants or foreign objects in her jaw, her brain, and on 53 sites of her body. Orthopedic specialists noted that inflammation of her joints appeared to occurring internally as of imploding outward, as of emanating from a radio frequency transporter implantable. Doctors often ignored what appeared as unidentified objects on scans, but here and there some made remarks acknowledging them. Okay, so the doctors know. All of them know. What emerged from these sleep studies, okay, so here's the sleep study. This is interesting. Is especially significant. Both times her sleep patterns were found to be highly irregular. The first study shows she was aroused 24 times in 1 hour while she slept. And in other words, the pattern of waves recorded as emanating from her brain showed spikes relating to being woken that many times, evidence of external radio transmissions to her brain, spiking in frequency from sleep states to alpha wake-up states and used, Millicent says, to transmit spoken words directly in the auditory cortex in her brain, bypassing the ear. That's probably why her perpetrator took the thing out of her ears, because they want to bypass the ear and go straight to the brain. That's how fucked up they are. The second study in Ohio showed she was woken 49 times over 6 hours while she slept. The brief state of arousal during waking, says Melissa, calling on her undergraduate studies in behavioral science, is known as to be a highly suggestible state. Today, neural imaging studies mentioned here in this article by clinical psychologist Dr. Matthew Wheeler on state of consciousness can demonstrate waking suggestibilities in patients through EEGs and controlled experiments. Images, sounds, and sensory data can also be inserted easier in this state. You know what I think they're doing is they're taking all of our shit and then they're going to download it into these fucking robots. You know? That's what they're doing. Hypnotists and radio hypnotists take advantage of this waking suggestibility for patients, or victims, as the case may be, are just waking to insert suggestions, instructions, images into their subconscious. Melissa reports images and names being flashed into her mind during liminal state, the dozing state just before falling asleep. Another anomaly reported from her sleep study scan shows dreamt onset occurring rather rapidly. So this is when they force the shit on your fucking brain. Rather rapidly, literally 5 minutes into sleep state as opposed to more normal 90-minute onset after falling asleep. You are in an electronic slavery condition, people. Electronic slavery, which an entire town consents to condone. What is curious about Melissa's experience is that the people around her in a small rural community of Mount Pleasant and in Columbia seemed to know exactly what was happening to Melissa and why. Even if herself didn't. Remarks made to her by family members suggested they had been actively deceived in very deliberate ways about Melissa's character. In other words, they have been fed stories about her that they have also been fed stories about what's being done to her. For all they seemed to know was being done, but that didn't seem to care. A mutual cousin of hers in Barrett said that to her at various times, quote, "It's about who you are. Your hands are tied. This is only for a season. Everything you say can be heard by others, kindly at other times. You're fighting for your life. You've had more than your share of it." A former very close friend said, "I know that every area of your life is being messed with. Your financial life, your spiritual life, and your relationships. They want to make you fail." An aunt of Wolf said, picked out to be picked on. She often said the name Barrett with no explanation. She and her daughter talked to each other about what was being thought in Melissa's head in 1997-98. Those references were the strange thoughts and images that had started to enter her brain. Thoughts that she had shared as unusual with the Wellspring Retreat psychologists and with other Ohio psychologists who advised her to laugh at those thoughts. If she had never experienced distress thoughts like those before, saying, "Of course you think there is a conspiracy against you and you might be right." So these doctors know. They're in on it.